We have now seen that the setup with bishop e3 and queen d2 is not so dangerous. So let's move on to a different type of approach by white here. As instead of bishop e3, f4 looks like another interesting try for white. The idea of the setup is that after knight f6, the knight can also be developed to f3, which looks like a more active continuation compared with the lines discussed in the previous chapter. After castling by both sides, I would like to suggest here the move rook b8 with the plan of launching the b pawn. A typical idea which offers usually black quite some comfortable play. White has a lot of different ways to deal with it. He can ignore it. He can also anticipate the advance by using its own a pawn. What I want to point out is that there are different ways to reach a certain position. As white, for instance, goes a4, and we play a6, white goes h3, let's say b5, pawn takes, and white continues attacking on the king side. This is the standard plan, and after b4, we go knight e2. This position is going to be discussed later on as well, but it can also be reached by starting with the move h3, and then we continue with the move b5. Now, there are different options. White can actually also play here the move a3, and then we transpose very soon. I want to show you first another possibility, which is that after the move g4, we play b4, knight goes back to e2. But I think there are enough good ideas here for black to generate counterplay. And my suggestion is to go bishop b7, knight to g3, and here we go for the move knight d7. So we are ready to get a nice grip on the dark squares in case white is going to push f5. We can put one of our knights to that square. After the move h4, I'd like to put my bishop on a6, so that after h5, we can play the move c4. And I think this is nice. For instance, if white tries to keep the position closed, we have the idea to play c3, attacking the rook. And if the rook goes away, we open the queen side, bishop takes, and we get our knight in to c4 with a lot of counterplay. And I don't think white is in the right position here to build up an attack. So that's totally fine. There was one model game of Mikhailov against Dominguez in which white played king h2, but then black can simply take on d3 and get a knight to c5 to hit the pawn on d3. And after knight e1, white's pieces are pushed back and the black knights are looking excellent in the center. There followed this move g5, and what I want to show you here is that the best way to proceed is to play b3 in order to open up more files to deflect white's pieces from carrying out a kingside attack. The idea is that in case of a3, we can play the move knight c2. So white cannot keep the position closed here because the knight on e1 and the rook on a1 are under an attack. And whenever you're going to take on c2, after taking back, eventually the pawn on d3 can be taken by the bishop on a6, after which white's position is falling apart. I think that is a very nice idea to bear in mind. So we see that black will always find ways to break through. I think a3 can be considered here as well. So let's have a look at it. After a5, again, there are some possibilities. And the main move we will discuss is g4. Before we go there, I want to show that bishop e3, knight d7 with the idea to go b4 is also quite okay. Now white is a little bit too late to play queen d2 because after b4 take, the knight goes back to d1 to keep the pawn on b2 defended. But here, after knight d4, this knight on d1 looks pretty bad, and black is in really good shape and will find new ways to generate play on the queen side. We will see some examples later on as well. So instead, if you go rook b1, okay, white was kind of forced to spend the move protecting the pawn on b2. We may consider playing b4, which actually is going to be a transposition to a position we will discuss very soon. An alternative is also to play here first the move knight to d4 again, with a point that, taking on d4 with the bishop is not so great, because after cd and e5, look at the minor pieces. They will not become pretty good in this game. Of course, taking with a knight is not an option because of c takes d4 and both the minor pieces are hanging. And in case of g4, my idea is to go b4. And after ab, look at this idea. There's the option to take on f3. And rather than taking back with the a pawn, which is like the automatic move, look at this idea. cb4, knight e2. And now you can follow up with the move a4. And we see that black is actually creating a potential outside passed pawn, and with the bishop controlling the promotion square, that can become really dangerous for white. So I think after instead something like knight e2, we can take on f3, bishop takes, b4, ab4. Now the difference is that the knight is no longer on c3, so cb4 is not that powerful. White can play a move like a b3 or perhaps something else. So we take back with the a pawn, which is the positional way of playing. And after g4, bishop b7, queen e1. White is looking for some activity on the king side. But we are in good shape and ready to take over the initiative on the a file. After something like c3, as otherwise the pawn on b2 is going to be targeted, we are going to take, we move the bishop away, and very soon we will try to bring more pieces over there, and black is faster on the queen side than white can start an attack against the black king. So this was pretty good for black in the game Hess against Gashimov. Well, then after a5, instead of bishop e3, g4 is a possibility, of course. Now, after the move b4, ab, the knight goes to e2, we put our bishop on b7. I think this is a nice position for black, and we have a different approach. Right now we are not thinking about placing a knight on d4. What I want to point out are a couple of things. First of all, if you do play g5, the knight is going to block the king side with knight h5, and white's attack is coming to an end. And in such cases, we are going to play queen b6, rook a8, and try to play on that side of the board, because white is in trouble there. Also because of the far advanced b pawn, we have more space, and white is struggling defending its weaknesses. So g5 is just a bad move. The attempt to play with f5 is also not too great. I'd like to play the move knight d7. As mentioned earlier, in this structure, it more looks like a checkers formation. We have very nice control over these dark squares. And if white's going to take, on g6 we go hg. If white brings the queen in and tries to threaten mate, we keep everything pretty well defended. And after queen h4, we put our knight on f8. f7 is defended, h7 is defended. So how is white going to break through? I don't see it. I think everything is under control, and therefore we are in good shape. So that is something we should not fear at all. We probably have even ideas to go f6 at some point. So instead of taking, white players may consider maintaining the tension for a while, keeping the pawn on f5. But then there's knight de5. We are ready to initiate some exchanges. And it's important to point out that something like knight g5, intending to bring the queen out, can be met by h6. And then b3 is a nice idea to ruin the pawn formation, as the knight on e5 is attacking the pawn on d3. So instead, probably knight takes e5, knight takes e5, queen h4 for instance. And now b3 again is the kind of standard idea to open up the queenside pawn formation, and black is just in really good shape here. So yeah, that is about in situations in which white is going to start an attack with f5. I don't think it's too problematic. How about bishop e3? Let's go knight d7, attacking the pawn on b2. And for instance, if in case of c3, rook a8, queen c2, queen b6, this is a nice position in which likely rooks are going to be exchanged, and we have like a risk-free position to start targeting the pawn on c3 later on. The other knight can come in. I mean, you got to be patient, but white's play on the king side is not gonna lead to anything if there are no rooks on the board. So in the game short against Kasparov, Zurich 2001, there followed rook b1, rook a8, white played c4, and now e6 is a nice move. And after g5, looking for some play on the king side, I would recommend this interesting idea with f5. It's a typical idea to stop white's attacking play. And in case of g takes f6, bishop takes f6, again, the position is very flexible. We always have options to consider pawn breaks, but we don't even have to play it. So I like to get in a rook at some point. Please give me black here. That's what I wanted to show you. But it's an interesting idea to bear in mind that if things starting to get a little bit dangerous, then f5 is usually a nice counter strike. Then knight g3 is possible, but we are going to play rook a8 with ideas to shift the attention to the queen side once again. In case of rook takes a8, we take with the queen, bishop e3 for instance, and then the queen can come into a2. And, well, there are a lot of problems. Rook can come to a8, pawn on b2 can be attacked by the bishop as well. So that's not good. Bishop e3 is probably not what you should do, but keeping the bishop on c1 is also not great. Let's say you go g5 and you start an attack with your pawns. The queen comes here. Let's say you go b3 and then the rook comes in. And then we are focusing now on a new target, which is the pawn on c2. And black is in really good shape here. The white's attack once again isn't threatening at all. So often we see that rather than taking on a8, moves like rook b1 are played here, giving the file to the opponent, but white defends the pawn. But anyway, knight e7, let's say bishop e3, rook a2, queen c1, and now bishop a6. Again, we have these kind of ideas with b3 or sometimes even c4. We see that d3 is a potential weakness. So rook d1, knight comes into d4, that is great. And here we are following a game of Dreljevic against Amin, bishop f2 played. And for instance, knight takes f3, bishop takes, and I like queen to c7. With fantastic queenside play, the knight can come over to a4, and that will force white to make further concessions, and white is now distracted from carrying out these attacking ideas on the king side. So everything is looking good, and that's also not going to change with the next move, queen e1, which was seen in a game in which Firuzha was playing with the black pieces. After queen e1, it is time to play the move c4. With its last move, queen e1, white forgot about this problem with the pawn on e4. Taking on c4 is met by knight takes e4. The center is opened and white's king becomes more vulnerable. So that's why the knight often goes here to g3, for instance, but then we go taking on d3, taking back with the pawn, and now knight d7 again, and we have a clear target. Queen e2 played in the game, Abdelnaby against Firuzha, and here my recommendation is to fix this weakness on b2 with the move b3, and we have fantastic prospects here with knight c5, knight b4, attacking the pawns. The bishop can come to a6. Again, it is black who is dictating here the course of the game. Of course, some work to be done here still, but things are looking really good here for black. So, yeah, that is basically my repertoire against the Sicilians with g3, the close Sicilians with g3 and an early f4. I like the setup with knight f6 and a quick rook b8. Looks to me that black is having a very comfortable time here.